So, a bit over a year ago, I got this 100 movies bucket list board, and I have not sat down to watch through it. Because I'm really lazy when it comes to watching movies. I procrastinate and I tend to just watch my favorites over and over again. But this movie bucket list is the 100 most important movies of all time. Subjective, obviously, but it's a pretty solid list. It'll be coming up on screen now as I'm talking. Maybe I didn't go close enough with my camera, but you should get a gist of what's on it. And I decided this year, what with the lockdown and stuff, that I was gonna have a weekly movie night with my ma and my sister. So we sat down and we watched through the MCU in order, and that there's a separate video on the way for that. But then I decided when we were done the MCU that we were gonna sit down and watch every movie on this board, with the exception of a few. You'll notice as the camera is going along that ones with a pink label are ones my ma has vetoed. She has said she's not gonna watch them, and ones with an orange label are ones that my girlfriend Molly wants to join me for, or join us for. So with all that preamble out of the way, the first movie on the board is Gladiator. Now, I've never seen Gladiator before. It came out the year I was born, and for whatever reason I've never, which is 2000 by the way, and I've never watched it. I don't really know why. Probably because I'm not a big historical epic guy. It's not my genre. It's not what I like to watch in terms of movies. But it was the first thing on the board, and I thought this would be cool, you know? So I'm going to do a review of every movie on the board, working my way through. There's a couple of trilogies on it as well, so obviously that'll be 3 separate videos. And at the end of it, I'm going to share, my thoughts on the board. Is it, would do some movies live up to the hype or not? But this is basically, 2 years worth of videos. One a week is the plan anyway. This will provide some structure to my channel, so hopefully I can stick with this one a bit more consistently than I have on my other channel. With that being said, let's get into the movie itself. Gladiator came out, as I said, in 2000, starring Russell Crowe as Maximus Decimus Meridius, Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, the main protagonist and antagonist respectively. It also stars Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, Derek Jacobi as other characters, and I'll get to why I say other characters in a bit. So the general gist of the movie is a Roman soldier, played by Russell Crowe, wants to retire, but he is chosen to be the next Caesar of Rome, so the guy in charge of Rome, by Richard Harris. Marcus Aurelius. Sorry, I find it hard to remember the names, but basically he doesn't really want that, but he's torn between his loyalty to this guy and wanting to go home to his family. And the actual son of Marcus Aurelius, played by Commodus, is like, I want to be king, or I want to be Caesar, why you not pick me? But he's like a sociopath man baby. If you've seen Game of Thrones, Jack Gleeson pretty much modeled his performance as Joffrey on this character. So some stuff happens and Russell Crowe is thrown into the gladiatorial arena where he must fight for his freedom. This movie's 20 years old, literally. Minor spoilers still though, because, if people haven't seen it like I hadn't, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but certain things like how does he end? He's a gladiator. How does he go from a Roman soldier to a gladiator? Is that a spoiler? I don't fucking know. But he's a gladiator anyway. So I'll start with things I liked, as I generally tend to do with reviews. I start with things I like. If it's a positive review, which this board being 100 movies bucket list, I assume most of these are going to be quite positive. Performances are the main standout of this. Russell Crowe plays a very stoic everyman. He won a Best Actor Oscar for this. I haven't seen the other nominees from that year, so I can't say whether or not he deserved it or not. But he plays a subtle role. It's not very showy. He doesn't raise his voice an awful lot. It's very, it's a subtle performance, which when I saw he won Best Actor, I was a little bit like, what? Because a lot of the performances that win that are very dramatic and over the top, which is, not necessarily a good thing. But he plays the part incredibly well. In the moments where he needs to be emotional, he is. It's not my favorite thing I've seen him in. That's a different movie entirely, which I'll talk about in a different video. But he is excellent in this movie as a main character. In the scenes where I'm supposed to root for him, I do. So that's great. He gets me invested in the movie, which is another thing. That was great, but I'll get to that in a bit. Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. I mean, enough has been said about his performance already. He steals the show because, of course, he does. His performance is more showy and over the top, but it's also entirely believable. He is one of the greatest movie villains of all time for a reason. He is hateable, detestable, and he's a big part of why Russell Crowe's character works so well. If he wasn't so unlikable, I wouldn't give a shit, really. And that's a criticism I do have for the movie, is it's pretty much a two-man show aside from those two. That's why I said, Connie Nielsen and Oliver Reed as others. Oliver Reed is pretty good in this. Like, it's his last movie role. He died during it, and he brings this sort of theatrical grandeur to it. He plays a sympathetic slave owner. Never thought I'd say that in my life. He's actually really likable, even though he owns slaves. He's a former gladiator himself. And it's his final performance. He died during filming, and they CGI him in the last couple of scenes, and it's rough, but also it's 2000, so, whatever. He's pretty good, but again, his character's not super developed. Connie Nielsen plays the sister of Commodus, sort of like, he's like incestually obsessed with her, and she doesn't really have a lot to do. Like, she acts fine, but the character's really one note. She cares about her son, and she doesn't like her brother. Okay, so 2 notes. Congratulations. She doesn't get a lot more. Even Maximus's family don't really have any screen time. You don't get to know them at all. You just know that he wants to be with them. And that's my main issue with the movie, really, is it's a 2-man show, but those 2 men are fucking phenomenal in it, so you can't criticize it too much for that. I also really like the action scenes in the movie. There's one major battle at the start, and then the rest are like gladiatorial fights. Mostly, I'm pretty sure it's all practical, which helps, because a lot of movies in 2000 try to do CGI stuff that they weren't able to do really at the time, and they suffer for that. Whereas Gladiator is mostly practical. Obviously, the shots of the fully recreated Colosseum are not practical, because you're not going to rebuild a Colosseum for a movie, and they're phenomenal. Gladiator fights especially are just brutal. It's gorier than I thought it was going to be. Like, I know it's a Gladiator movie, I knew it was going to be grim, but it's like pretty bloody. Still in like a Hollywood way though. It's not like Game of Thrones gore, really. It's not that level. Oh, and if I keep talking about Game of Thrones as a comparison, that's the closest one that I have off the top of my head. I'm not saying it's as good or better, because I don't really like Game of Thrones that much. It's gory, but not like too bad. It's more than I thought it was going to be, and some of the kills made me pop. I was like, whoa, that's unreal, and I got really into it, so that was cool. That's pretty much, like, there's not a lot to the movie. My sister walked out. She couldn't finish it because she's not a historical epic person, and she was tired, and she didn't get that into it. My ma is also not a fan of these kind of movies, but she enjoyed it a lot for what it is, which is what I would say if someone who hasn't seen this is thinking about watching it. It's a Gladiator movie. It doesn't really do anything groundbreaking as far as that genre is concerned. It did bring it back. It brought back into the mainstream a little bit. There's like a weird whistle in my house. It low-key sounds like, the bomb noise? I don't know if you can hear that, or is it in my head? But yeah, overall I thought the movie was really, really good. Does it deserve its place on the 100 movie bucket list? I suppose it does. It is one of the most important historical epics of all time, because of the popularity that it brought to the genre in my generation, or for my generation, and the generation before mine, I suppose. So, like, people who were my age when this movie came out, I imagine this would have had a pretty big impact on them. Overall, I thought the movie was really good. In terms of what it set out to do, it got me invested, it entertained me with action sequences. I just wish there was a little bit more going on in terms of side characters, and I wish, Maximus's family had been fleshed out a little bit better. But I am going to give Gladiator a 9 out of 10. And that's the end of the review. It's still a little bit choppy. I'm still trying to get used to doing these kind of videos. It's a learning curve, and I'm trying to get better at it. So, as I go through the movie board, a lot of the scores are going to be quite high, because I feel like, they're on the board for a reason. They're great movies. So I'll try and throw in some other movies during the week that maybe are not as well known or not as good, to try and, balance my scale a little bit. Because so far the 2 scores I've given out are an 8.5 and a 9. I'm not that generous with everything. I happen to review 2 good things first. So next week, I'm watching Leon the Professional, which I believe is right behind me still. This thing, I'm watching this next week, so that'll be the review for next week. And I might try and get another review done during the week. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I have been the Movie Nut, and I will see you guys again next time. Peace.